What's good, everybody? Welcome again. It's Peter from Full Spectrum Performance, and it's day 4 of our water fast. So, bodily updates. I've lost about 2 pounds. I mean, I only showed a pound, but I was wearing clothes when I did it because I forgot, and I was running out the door. Had to weigh myself real quick. But yeah, about a pound, 2 pounds. Yesterday was a pretty sedentary day, more so working on the computer and stuff like that. So it wasn't too crazy. But most important thing about it is you're over the hump if you made it this far. Honestly, like I woke up and was up, and it's pretty intense. I think the coolest thing about water fast that it shows for the body is at this point, ketosis is full on going. If this is your first water fast and you're at this point, you still may be feeling a little sick in the morning. That's normal. It's okay. You're gonna be all right. Now, one thing that's actually really blowing my mind, like absolutely blowing my mind with this fast, is I haven't had any salt. Been 4 days and I'm alive. And the thing is, like, I just dabbled and did a little mini workout stuff since I got back from my morning sessions. I'm about to head out for another one, so this video is gonna be a little bit shorter, but I have zero fatigue when working out. I think the stuff that I actually have noticed is that still with most water fast stuff, cardio-wise, just not there right now. If sure it was an emergency situation, I could run, but it's just one of those things where I just prefer low key stuff. So more like walking, do a little bit of yoga, but lifting, I got a few sets in deadlifting. When I come back from my other session before a meeting, I'm probably about to do a power cleans, something chill, nothing too crazy, but I'm not like 75% normal weight in terms of max. So if you're working out today, go for it. Have fun. But I'm also probably going to try to hit some calisthenics and get some ring work in. But today is a chill day. I mean, honestly, at this point on, you're cruising water fast. The bodily appetite is gone, or it should be. And if you're not, essentially, if you're feeling hungry and stuff like that, at this point, it's mental because you're just craving food. And this is one of the reasons why in the beginning of this fast, I believe it was day 1, I said, dude, just embrace it. Just embrace your fast because that's what's going to eliminate all of that kind of lingering, oh, I want to eat, I want to eat. You have to understand it's just the body. And this is the thing where it's when we let the body run wild, it's going to just do its own thing and it's going to have its own saying. It's going to be very much like a little Veruca from Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory. I want it now. I want this. I want that. So again, remember the whole point of these water fasts is to build the space. Now, the coolest thing about that is that gets incredibly easy from this day 4 and on because for the most part, the internal chatter and dialogue should really be dialed down at this point. It should be more so just you willing what you want to do. You have goals today, get them done. You have something you're focusing on, you're extra focused, hyper focused. And excuse me, you may be aware that when you practice this aspect of a water fast and you're this far, excuse me, I got a little bit of the burps. That's somewhat normal. I'm expecting some bacteria to die off. It usually happens for me around day 4 and 5. But in terms of the importance of the spiritual aspects of this water fast, you have to understand that as you continue to sink deeper into your awareness, just being present in life, seeing the internal stuff come up, in terms of the emotions, the mental patterns, the physical sensations, you're really starting to solidify yourself as the observer in life. And this is the most important thing because when you recognize that you are the observer of both the internal and the external, then the pull of each don't have as much sway over you and where your awareness kind of twists its gaze and points its gaze towards. So one of the things that I really want to kind of push you towards is how's it going there? Is allow yourself to truly sink in to just being present during this water fast. Allow yourself to just take some time for yourself to meditate. No, thank you. I appreciate the chats. And really, most importantly, let go. This is a day where it's, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know how long I want to go for. I don't know where I'm feeling. I kind of want to eat, blah, 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 blah. But if you set yourself out to finish these 7 days, finish the 7 days. I mean, if you've made it this far, these next few days are going to be cake. Honestly, it's going to be super easy. Now, the coolest thing about this is the fact that This is for you. This is for you to uplift yourself. And you have the most opportunity to do that and make these transformative changes on this fourth day. Because at this point, again, the internal dialogue, the internal chatter, and all these other things have very quiet. They're very quiet. It's almost silent. And if you still have some lingering thoughts and you're running around in your head, just stop. Just recognize that that's just a habit. And realistically, the coolest thing about water fast is that the body doesn't have the extra energy to kind of whine and complain about things and to dive into this honestly just super negative cycle of most people running around in your head all day, being drawn by your emotions. So it's just important to recognize that today is a day to really tap into your source, to really tap into this sense of self and to explore it because you don't have any distractions now. And that's the coolest thing about water fast is that you can level up naturally just by having a little bit of time for reflection, having a little bit of time for that introspective search of, well, what have I done before in my life? How do I feel now? One bodily effect I didn't mention earlier is that you may be in somewhat of a forage mode. So smells and colors might become more intense. Now that's pretty normal as well because the body's like, let's eat. But not everyone experiences that. It really just depends. But back to the spiritual stuff, because again, this is the most important part. I mean, the first few days are very more so physical, but from 4 and on, it's definitely more spiritual because the further you sink into your fast, the quieter and quieter and quieter the body gets. And then it starts to put you back in your initial position of life, the controller of the body. We don't always recognize that's kind of what's going on, but you can see it in children, you can see it in babies, especially because they want to talk. They know what they want. But physically, vocal cords aren't developed. They can't talk. It just comes out as nonsense. Their muscles aren't developed yet. Same thing with walking. When we're crawling around, we want to get up and go because we have this will, we have this desire, but the body won't do it yet. So when we grow up, we have this kind of identification that keeps stacking upon itself with the body. And the most important thing with this is what's good is when you're in this fast and you're continuing to kind of strip away and peel these layers back of your bodily identification and attachment, you start to see a lot more things about yourself than you may have noticed before. You start to see the patterns, you start to see the kind of habits that you would have traveled down in terms of these paths of least resistance and giving into temptations, indulgence, et cetera, et cetera. And when the feedback is quiet, like it is in this fast, as the body is just kind of in conservation mode, so it doesn't have all the extra energy to kind of be a little obnoxious toddler, that you begin to really start to see truth within your own experience. You start to really address your problems, your flaws. You start to really see the things that you're like, wow, that wasn't that hard, or oh, wow, that's not present. So, one of the most important things with the fast is that you may have already noticed that a lot of your emotional stuff, a lot of the mental stuff, even some physical stuff has just gone away. I mean, at this point, your inflammation should already be dropped, like almost to near zero, but your inflammation should be going down. Your blood pressure should be dropping if you have high blood pressure. Um, in terms of your insulin resistance, your body's going to start resetting all of these synapses and triggers that regulate all these processes. And for most part, for people, if you've been struggling with weight loss, this is the time when the body's really starting to utilize that fat as fuel. So again, it's one of those things where it's like the bodily potential is so much for what you're doing physically, but it's even more so for the spiritual and intangible things because you're your own being. And when you do these things, you really just sit back in this place of awareness and presence that we only really get to experience when we're in those moments of just pure relaxation or happiness or love. And that's the coolest thing because it reveals that this ground of stillness within our experience of life is always present. It's just covered up with the things we worry about, the stressors, the mental stuff we keep communicating and entertaining, and the emotional attachments. And again, the physical sensations that we kind of adhere to. So when you're continuing your fast, or if you're getting into your fast, doesn't really matter. Just remember that The most important part about a fast isn't just the physical stuff. It's really more so for the internal changes that go on within this, because you drastically start to change your life. You see that you're capable of things that you didn't believe. You witness firsthand and have this experiential knowledge of truth. And that's the coolest thing about it, is because you're gaining this wisdom through your own actions. You're gaining this recognition and sense of, discovery through your own gaze and your own window of awareness. And it's to each their own in this process. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you can become enlightened and you can become a breatharian and you can do all this crazy stuff on a water fast. You can. Clearly, you can. I mean, it's one of those things that a lot of people do it. I've done it. And I've already noticed the pranic engine start to operate. And that was more so yesterday, that it was just full on, I've just been breathing and I've been feeling energized. I've actually can't really drink that much water. I'll sip it if I'm feeling parched. But if I take a chug of water, I'll start to feel sick because I don't need it anymore. I'm at this point where you can sustain your life on energy. And I think that's the thing. It's like quantum mechanics. We're all showing this in terms of the physics nowadays, that electrons are all connected. Everything in this world, the atoms within our body have space. It's one of those things where everything around us in this energetic hologram, so to speak, is still being discovered, the true properties and qualities. But if you align yourself with more of the Eastern thought, you can discover this stuff experientially. You can start to feel the energy. I did a little Qigong work and more so breathing and stuff on my drive to and from clients and this morning. And it was trippy. The only way I can put it is, how you feel your body, right? It felt like there was no boundary. And that's pretty much where I'm at experientially right now, is that this tabletop or my island, this chair, there is no separation in terms of the sensations of what I'm experiencing. And it's not new. When I first experienced this, it was pretty trippy. But at this point, you can really transcend your experience the further you sink into the spiritual stuff. And that's the power of perception. That's the power that we each have. Because, if you want to think about it like this, you're God. We're each gods. And that's the beauty of life, because you manifest your reality. And when you start to see things and you start to experience things that go beyond what you thought was true, that really push, and honestly, they break down those barriers and thoughts and conceptions that you have, and you experience something like that, it's life changing. And the more you sink into the water fast, the more opportunity you have for all this stuff. And really, again, because you're quieting down the internal stuff so you can clearly see, so you can clearly start to sense and feel your own ground of being. And it sounds hokey for a lot of people until you try it, until you do it and you see it, until you're 4 days in and you haven't eaten food and you're like, let's go 24/7. Like, I have so much energy. I didn't get to sleep until like 11:30, almost midnight last night. Woke up at like 5 something and just laid there, did some gratitude, but was wide awake. A little mini meditation in bed, but like, it's just it's a beautiful experience if you really give into it. You really surrender to it. And that's very much a spiritual thing, is surrendering. Don't resist your resistance. Don't have expectations. Just let go. Just let go and embrace what's here. Because when you really stop and, in terms of you're feeling hungry and you want to eat, again, your body's suppressed hunger. If you're feeling hungry, it's mental. So if you recognize that and you just say, no, I don't need food, I'm good, the body will just whoosh, snap in line. And that's the cool part about the water fast, is because it gets to this point where you're asserting your position again. You're asserting your position as the observer of the body and not the body itself. And although you still do things in how in life, it's one of those things where it's no longer a one-way street in terms of the body forcing you to do things you don't want to do. And that's the important thing, especially for people nowadays with all the addictions and problems, and especially instant gratification that we have. Like, it's so funny for me. The most wild thing I think about this fast is I really don't have any desire to go on my phone or electronics, like, at all. It's actually pretty entertaining. Like, I was even getting on the surface of my phone this morning to get ready for this. I was just like, I'm so sensitive to like the energy and radiation it puts off at this point. I'm just like, fuck these things, man. It's crazy. Like we've created technology that we're not sensitive to even perceive because we're so dulled down. And I think the coolest thing about these fast, again, I mean, there's a lot of cool things clearly from this video, but the coolest thing about it is like life just begins to open up on so many subtle levels. So I actually have to get going to another session. So I'll wrap it up here. I love you. Remember that your water fast is something for you. Not everyone is ready. You should ease into it before you start. But if you have that ironclad will, dive deep and enjoy the experience, embrace the experience. Because, as I said earlier, the ground of stillness that you're able to perceive at this point in your fast is what's always there. And for beings like myself, in terms of the awakening process, that's how life always is. So if you're experiencing this for the first time and there's no mental chatter, there's no emotional duress, just know that that's how your life experience can always be. So that's the cool thing about water fast, is because when you experience something once, it's not just like a temporary thing. It's how it always is. And I agree with you, Learn to Grow. You guys all should check her out. She has brilliant stuff on how to really get back into nature and how to really produce nature and grow fruit and vegetables. It's delicious. I'm definitely taking some tips for my strawberries. They're booming right now. Can't wait till they fruit. But of course, thank you. And yes, I agree fully. We need to be in touch with nature. And I think that's another important thing about the water fast, is that it brings you back in that sense. It brings you back in that kind of still ground of being, that the superficial stuff just doesn't really matter. So it's been Peter from Full Spectrum Performance. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Have a great day. I love you, and enjoy your water fast if that's what you're doing. Peace.